Hey guys, it's Amanda. Welcome back to my channel. And today I want to talk about how TikTok dating advice rotted my brain. I am one of the few unfortunate souls who watched a few TikTok dating advice gurus here and there, and suddenly my feed became flooded with dating advice and nothing else. People telling me what to text, what to wear, what to say, how to act, all in pursuit of getting a man. There's so much dating advice and dating content and dating gurus on TikTok, and I feel like it has just actually jumbled my brain up, and I haven't really sat down to consider that until now. A lot of the advice is just given with such authority when in reality nobody is an expert on dating. As far as I know, I don't think you can get a master's or a PhD in dating wisdom. At the end of the day, a lot of the advice is subjective, anecdotal, and sometimes even toxic. I'd like to think that I take the content I consume with a grain of salt. And I think even though I was seeing so much of this dating content and I knew logically that okay, just because some random girl on the internet says this works doesn't mean it's the law. I think I logically knew that, but I still let it seep into my brain. I think especially because TikTok, it's not a place where you necessarily click on videos. You are just served content. And so I think if you hear stuff enough, even if you don't necessarily fully agree with it or believe in it, it will sort of infiltrate your brain. And I think that's what happened to me with TikTok and dating advice. I would see these videos of women saying never go on a date with a man who suggests a coffee date because he's broke and low value. And I'd be like, okay, yeah, I've been on coffee dates. They aren't the worst thing in the world. And I know that logically, but that information would still seep into my head. The next, if someone asked me to go on a coffee date, I'd be I'd already have a negative feeling about it just because of that content I consumed. So that's what I want to talk about in this video, how TikTok dating advice has, I think, really messed up my view on dating, and also just in general, exclusively dating on dating apps has messed up my view of dating. I think dating apps are having a moment right now where people are really hating it. People are really wanting to turn to in-person alternatives to meeting people, whether it's speed dating events or just hitting on people in public, or of course going to a run club. I also feel like someone who has literally just started dating when dating apps were already widely popular and available, and basically only has dated through dating apps. I think that has fundamentally changed the way I approach dating, and I don't think it's for the best. Usually I do a lot more scripting and research for my videos, but this one's just going to be personal, anecdotal vibes. So let's get into it. I want to take a brief pause to thank Parade for sponsoring today's video. I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but we are in a drought. We are experiencing a dearth of cool, funky, fresh underwear, and Parade sort of stepped up to the plate and said, I'm gonna do something about it. Guys, I want you to take a look at this. This is the Sweetheart Satin Lounge Bralette, and it simply brings me so much joy and delight every time I wear it. The print is called Pasta Party because duh. And honestly, this is so good that it's I don't want to hide it. So what I do is I'll wear it with a cute little sheer thing like this, where it's you can kind of see under, you can kind of see what's going on. There's a little bit of mystery, there's a little bit of intrigue. Is that elbow macaroni or is that bow tie on your bosom? If you feel like your underwear drawer is lacking and you want to spice it up, perhaps with a little bit of pasta, I would implore you to check out Parade and use my code AM40 for 40% off your order site-wide. Okay, back to the video. So let's do a little debrief on my dating history because I think this also is important to my perspective. Before turning 18, I had absolutely no dating history to speak of, no bitches, no hoes, phone was dry. Of course, I had crushes. Did they like me back? Did they know I exist? Absolutely not. I also have that trauma of being a black girl at predominantly white schools all my life. To sum up that experience, you can just watch this short film I made. Because of like getting absolutely no play, no attention in high school, I was very excited to like go to college and start dating. And I think most people are, and I don't know if this is like normal or not, but specifically when I went to college, I was like, I'm gonna download dating app like right away, because to me it felt like a shortcut. Like, even though college is supposed to be the place where you're with a bunch of people who are your age who you could potentially date, because dating apps were so popular at that time, this was like 2018, I was like, oh, I can just download a dating app. I can like bypass this whole thing of even meeting someone, having a crush on them, or being friends with them. Like, I can just go to the source, make my profile, find someone who's attracted to me, and go on a date. Like, so much more simple than just like navigating life and finding someone naturally. And it really was that simple and easy. Like, I just made a profile, started swiping, and like within a day you can like be on a date. And I think because that was my first experience of dating, I was like, why would I not do this? Like, this is so easy. This is so streamlined. This is so simplified. It kind of just like optimizes the process of getting to go on a date. And that's what I desperately wanted. Unfortunately, in the process, I developed a crippling dependency to external validation from these dating apps, because I don't know, when you like match with someone, you get that little sound and it sends a rush of dopamine to your head. And you know, someone thinks you're cute, someone thinks you're attractive. I didn't realize in the moment, but I developed like such an addiction to the external validation that just came from being liked on dating apps. I used Tinder as a dating app because that's what I thought it was. Little did I know it really was a hookup app. So I was very confused in those early days when I went on 3 dates with someone and they did not want to marry me. At this time of using dating apps early on, I definitely wanted to be in a relationship. I wanted to get a boyfriend because to me, that would solve all my problems. I don't know why I thought this. It meant finding a permanent solution to my lack of external validation. So I was relentless. I went on so many dates. And of course, nobody wanted to be in a relationship with me because a lot of these people were not looking for a relationship. I definitely thought there was something deeply wrong with me because I was like, how am I going on all these dates and like literally no one wants to be my boyfriend? Like, that's crazy. It even got to the point where I kind of like gave up on actually finding someone I liked. And I literally was like, I just want a starter boyfriend. Like, I just need that first step. Now that in retrospect, I'm like, what did I even think I would be getting out of that? But truly, like, I just thought like having a boyfriend just makes your life automatically better if you have a boyfriend. Like, I couldn't even tell you, like, why would I want a starter boyfriend? Like, what does that even mean? I went on so many dates in college. It was low-key my hobby. Like, if I didn't have a plan and I wanted to do something, I would just swipe, find someone to go on a date with. I don't necessarily regret this. It's not like I completely abandoned like personal projects or school or friends or whatever to like go on dates. But I feel like any sort of free, unspoken for evening I had, I was just like, well, I should go on a date. And this kind of gets into how I feel like dating apps rotted my brain, because the bad thing about this approach is that I would go on a date with like anyone who would ask me. That was the standard. Like, if you ask me to go on a date, like, I will go. Like, I didn't even consider if I actually liked these people. And that became very apparent because there were so many dates I would go on and I'd show up there and I'd see the person and I'd just be like, no. But for some reason, just like the prospect of like going on a date was so important to me that I didn't even think about who I was going on the date with. And in my head, like, I was being picky. Like, I wasn't just like swiping right on any old Joe. But I think the medium of dating apps made me picky about the wrong things that like didn't really matter in terms of compatibility. I wasn't thinking about people's personalities. I was thinking, oh, how tall are they? What kind of school did they go to? what kind of job do they have? That can like tell you something. Maybe you have similar lifestyles, but it doesn't really tell you anything about if you're gonna enjoy having a conversation with this person. So that gets me into how dating apps rotted my brain. I feel like it gave me this mentality of like, there is unlimited people out there and it is a numbers game. So you just have to keep going. Everyone is disposable. There's always someone new around the corner. And I think this led me to spend way too much time on dating apps. I feel like there was points in time where I spent more time on like dating apps than like actual social media, because I kind of treated it like that. And it was just like a thing where I'd be constantly searching to get matches. And then also, because I would always be on it and like getting these matches and stuff, I would just have way too many people out of the realm of possibility that I could even speak to. I took this class in college that was like literally all about the science of love. And one thing that really stood out to me that I remembered from that class was if you have more than 9 matches at a time on a dating app, like your brain literally can't compute. You're not able to balance that many conversations and people in your head. And I think that was also a big problem with me on dating apps too. I would match with a bunch of people and almost like nothing would happen. Like there would be no conversation, or it would be like, hi, hey, how are you doing? Like that terrible conversation. So I would either have these conversations that like literally led to nowhere, or I think another problem with the medium of dating apps is that I would have these conversations with people for way too long before I met them. So I felt like I knew them because I was like texting them so much. Obviously, I liked these people, but it was more of like having a parasocial relationship with like a chat box, because you've truly like, you don't know who this person is. And I think that like really caused me a lot of distress and drama that like is only possible with this medium of dating apps. I would get like addicted to people who I didn't even know, and then when I met them in person, it was jarring. It was like, oh, that's not what I thought this was. Like it's just like a really mind-boggling experience to be talking with someone all day, and then you finally meet them and you're like, this is not the same thing at all. I feel like I had a lot of those experiences. So then I had experiences where I would just like try to skip that whole stage of like small talk and like, let's just match and like go on a date. And then the problem with that is that, well, I actually know nothing about you. And it becomes clear very quickly that we have nothing in common, and this is not a good fit. I think another thing with being on dating apps is that I was very like hyper fixated on my appearance, because being active on there, it's like, well, literally a date could happen any day, any moment. I always have to be looking my best. And like I said before, I feel like dating apps did make me very hyper fixated on arbitrary labels like height, profession, school. Not to say that those things don't matter. Of course they're important, but I put like way too much emphasis and value on those things. I use them as a determiner of if I would even like someone, when that is like just not the correct criteria to be using to determine that. Because I would say, for example, there are people who I've met in person who I'm like, if I saw their stats or whatever listed on a dating app, I would not be interested in them. But because I actually met them in person, like face to face as a person, like without that pressure of like, this is a date, I realized I'm like much more open to different people. But because of the format of dating apps and my preconceived notions, I'm like, oh, but I would only like a person who has this, this, and this. Like, even though I have been picky in some ways, it has also actually like really limited me from finding someone who I would actually like speaking to. I think this speaks to how easily dating apps like allow you to dehumanize other people into just pixels on a screen. And even if you do meet them just for a first date, you don't even like really have to like fully process it, because you're just like, there is another one around the corner. And honestly, it like reminds me of like how many freaking times I've been on a date with someone from a dating app, and it's like they literally get a notification from the dating app, and it's just like, oh yeah, I'm not a real person. I am just a fictional guest star character in your world, and there's someone waiting to take my spot right after. Okay, so now I want to get into how TikTok dating advice rotted my brain. Let's start first and foremost with Miss Sprinkle Sprinkle Lady Shira 7. Now, I'm gonna be honest, that woman is a comedian.
You said men today want to get chased? Okay, call the police on the man. What if this man told you that you should take down his number? I told him no thank you, but why do they approach and suggest we contact them? I could take down your credit card number, sir. Let me get that.
She is hilarious. That girl will always make me laugh. And that's honestly the main reason why I even entertained her videos, because I was just like, this is just absurd, but it's also hilarious. Even if you are consuming the content in an ironic or self-aware way, it still finds a way to seep its way into your brain. And I feel like that genuinely did happen to me with the Sprinkle Sprinkle content. Even though I was aware and I could be critical of it and I realized the shortcomings of all that, I think it still actually found a way into my brain, because if a man just asks me out on a coffee date, immediately I am thinking lower of him, because Sprinkle Sprinkle said a coffee date is not a real date. I think it's easy to view this content as just really funny and absurd because, men ain't shit, that type of thing. But I think we do have to remember, some men are victims, some men are oppressed, some men are broke because the system is not built for them. Just because they can't afford to pay for your nail appointment doesn't mean they are a bad person. And this isn't to say that people should lower their standards or expectations. I just think this type of content, it does send this really reductive message that men are only good for one thing, money, and women are only good for one thing, appearance. I think it puts this pressure on women, especially young women, to be oh, well, I have to take advantage of my youth and use my youth to lock down some rich man. Otherwise, I won't have that asset anymore. I think this content has hugely proliferated out of people just wanting financial stability and sort of realizing that one of the easiest ways to get that is by marrying someone who has it. I think this content has also become so popular now because I think this is one of the points in history where there has been such a collapse of socioeconomic groups. In the past, it was the rich people, the nobility, the aristocracy living in castles, and then literally everyone else was serfs and peasants. There wasn't much intermingling. But because our society is technically more equal than ever, people from vastly different socioeconomic statuses can interact. You can be a really, really poor kid at a school, and you can also be the son of a billionaire, at the same college. So I just feel this intermingling of socioeconomic classes also sort of makes it, this type of content, even possible. Whereas a few centuries ago, maybe even decades ago, it's if you didn't come from that rich background, there was no way that you were finding someone from that rich background, or it would have been very much so uncommon. And that definitely still exists today. There's definitely people from very wealthy backgrounds who just will stay within that. But because of dating apps, there is this possibility of okay, well, I can find someone who is much more well off than me. It's within reach. So, if I don't do that, am I doing a disservice to myself? And I think this type of content, I guess, preys on that fear. And I think it just sort of creates this unnecessary fear of you only have two options: getting a really rich, wealthy guy, or getting a man who will essentially be your dependent. And of course, those are not the only two options in the world. There's a lot of people in between that, and there's a lot of ways to find happiness without that. I think another piece of TikTok advice that kind of rotted my brain is, if he wanted to, he would. Now, as someone who is an anxiously attached lover girl, yes, this has brought me a new perspective of maybe stop texting someone who doesn't want to see you. However, I do worry that like that type of if he wanted to, he would advice, it sort of like takes away your agency in the equation. And it also doesn't give the other person a chance to like actually do something because they don't know what you want. I think it implies that like you shouldn't tell someone what you want and that they should be able to just read your mind, when of course that's not the case. And if he wanted to, he would definitely apply if you said, hey, I want you to do this reasonable thing, and he doesn't do it. So yeah, maybe that does say something. But I think like using it in that way of like, he should just do everything you want. He should read your mind. You shouldn't even have to tell him this. I feel like that creates sort of unrealistic standards and expectations for dating. And then I feel like the last frontier of TikTok dating advice that rotted my brain is the advice that's like, go out there, self-optimize, focus on yourself, get a hobby, and then you'll find the right guy. Well, yes, having hobbies and a social life is great and important. I feel like a lot of people use that as like a way of being like, you'll find love when you least expect it. I think one, this kind of shames people for trying to put effort into finding someone they like. And two, it implies that people who are in relationships like are somehow self-actualized and just better, and they like did all the work and that's why they're in a relationship. When, to be honest, a lot of the times people are just in a relationship because they found the right person at the right place at the right time. And that requires luck. Think about the people who are high school sweethearts. Like, those people just happen to be born into the right zip code and they found each other. I think it just like makes people who are not in relationships feel like they need to do like all this crazy stuff, all this self-discovery, all these solo trips to find themselves so that they can be in a relationship, when the truth is like you can be a terrible person and be in a relationship. Like, you actually don't have to work on yourself at all. This is not to say sit around and mope and be a horrible person, because of course you want to attract someone who is like has qualities that you like. But I do think that there is just like so much of like this self-optimization talk out there, and like so much of like, when I least expected it, it found me. When I was thriving in my career, it found me. When truthfully, you really can't control that. It just like made me under the impression that I have to have my whole life together and everything figured out in order for someone to like me. When in fact, like, you really don't have to change anything about yourself for the right person. Like, if it's the right person for you, they're gonna like you. You're not going to have to put on an act. You're not going to have to put on some charades. Like, it'll just be fine and normal. You won't have to convince them of anything. Yeah, so this is how TikTok dating advice and dating apps in general have kind of rotted my brain. I haven't gotten to the point where I have like sworn off dating apps, but I have gotten to the point where I've actually realized that like I can find a way to spend an evening by myself or with friends, and like I don't feel this pressure to be constantly dating and constantly trying to find someone. And I really only want to do that like when I'm in the mood for it, because I think the biggest thing that dating apps impacted me is that like finding a partner, a boyfriend, a romantic connection is something that I should always be doing. It should be a constant in the background of my life, and it basically has been ever since I like initially got on dating apps. And I feel like I've just like kind of finally gotten to the point where that is not like the background default. The background default is like, what do I want to do with my life? How do I want to spend my time? How can I hang out with my friends? Like, it's not just about finding a guy. And honestly, it's been like really nice and freeing. I think I'm also a lot less concerned with like the numbers game aspect of dating. And it's like, I genuinely just want to go on less shitty dates. And the way for me to do that is to make sure I'm genuinely interested in a person before I go on a date with them. Not interested in their height or their job. Like, do I genuinely think I could have like a good conversation with this person? Okay, so that's how TikTok dating advice and dating apps rotted my brain. I would love to hear your experience. How did they rot yours? If they did, let me know. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.